Okay, so here we are. This is the new lead screw power feed for the Hightower Lathe. Let me start at this end here. I'll just show you how this thing works. The lead screw here, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like an Acme thread or some sort of trapezoidal thread. There's a lock over here that keeps it from moving that way. That's an extra block. Talk about that in a minute. But there's this block here, this bushing block that it goes through. Let's see if I can get a good shot. It just clamps onto the rail, constrains it at that end. Similar setup at the motor end. There's this drive mechanism here. You tension it by loosening that arm and push it up and retighten it. That tensions it. And overall, it actually works really, really well. One thing you can't do with this to actually get the carriage out, somebody had asked about that. The carriage isn't going to come out without removing that block and undoing that collar. And I think you probably have to remove the motor itself too, which is not a big deal. It's just a couple of bolts that go into the side here. So it's not a big deal to remove this, but it's not. This isn't just going to slide out. You know, you have to do something to get it to slide out. This is the new head with the DC motor mounted. One thing to notice, you can still change the gearing here. So if you're coring, what you can do, so this is set up right now. This is as it comes from Chris, and it's set up to go. You go fairly fast as is. But what you can do if you're coring, or if you need a little more, torque, or if you just need it to turn a little bit slower, you can just move that down. You know, you have to undo this to do it, but that's just a couple of bolts. Just undo it, move it down, retension it, and you're done. It just takes a couple minutes. So you can slow this down and get more torque, and it actually works really, really, really well. Now the way the mechanism works here, let me show you. When you turn it on, well, first let me show you this. That lead screw, that's your rack. So this is still sort of like a rack and pinion, but the fixed lead screw is the rack. There's a pinion of some sort in there, and it moves back and forth on that lead screw. So there is no rack. That lead screw is your rack. The way it works, when you turn it on, you'll see what happens. The hand wheel actually starts to turn. And to get it to engage, you take this, which just locks the hand wheel in place. Once the hand wheel is locked in place, now the carriage starts to move. See that? And the speed is adjustable. As you go run along at a pretty good clip. You could also go insanely slowly. Okay. Turn that off, and it's reversible. To reverse it, you just unplug the motor and flip it around. It's just a DC motor. Unplug it, flip it around, and it'll run the other way. Now, I modified this, and the reason that I modified it was because I wanted to be able to mount this very, very easily. The way it comes, this, in order to mount the cross-slide dial, you have to remove this bracket here, that bracket where this lock screw this set screw goes through. You have to remove that, and then this sits on top of here with a nylon spacer. I found that to be very inconvenient, so I modified this a little bit. What I actually did is I replaced the bolt with this coupler. So I have a threaded rod now going down in there. I have some washers to make this the right height, and then I have a threaded coupler there. So that stays fixed, and that bolts the bracket down, and then this just sits on top of that, and the whole thing works very, very well. The other thing I did is I replaced the original locking mechanism here. I got a hardened long set screw, or I think I probably used some all thread, cut it to the right length, and put this nice knob on it, which I think is a little lower profile than the knob that was here. When you get it, there's this massive springs and stuff here to keep this from vibrating. I took all of that out because I needed this to sit lower. The last thing I did is I actually don't ever lock this against the collar here, because there's a little bit of play here, and what happens if you lock it against the collar, it's always just constantly pushing down on this, and it loosens up. Potentially it could slip if you don't make it tight enough. What I actually did is I have this lined up now so that this lines up with the center of the set screw in the collar right there, and I rounded off the bottom a little bit, so when I lock it in place, what I do is I actually line it up on the set screw, and I lock it like that, so I don't have to make this very, very tight. All I have to do is just snug it up enough, and then it catches and it works perfectly. But let me show you the brilliant part of this. And I don't know that anybody actually does it like this, because I've never heard anybody talk about this. I'm going to move it down here so that you can see it better. But because of how it works, this is really great, because you can see now that how this is just turning and nothing is moving, right? Well, the pitch of the lead screw doesn't change just because it's turning, so I can grab this while the power feed is on and actually move it wherever I want. And when I have it where I want it, I can simply hold. See what I'm doing here? Watch. When I have it where I want it, I can simply hold the hand wheel and it feeds forward. So this is great, because when you're doing something like ferrules or anything like that, what I do is I just turn the power feed on, and then I move it in, move it out, move it in, move it out, get it right where I want it, and just hold it. Move it back out, hold it, do another pass. Get a nice, consistent pass. Or this is really great when you're boring your jaws. You can slow this way, way down. Get it right up. Just hold it. Slowly feeds in. Back it out. Dial in and cross slide a bit. Hold the handle. Feeds in. Back it out. So, whereas with the old system, I know a lot of people just don't really use the power feed very much, because it's not convenient. You have to take this hand wheel off. It's just not convenient. But with the new system, I use this all the time. Feed in, back it out, dial in, feed in. I mean, this is great. You can imagine how great this is for boring for pins, for trimming your joint. I mean, any time you want a nice consistent feed rate, and you're doing a lot of this back out, back in, it just works great. That's worth the price of admission right there. Works I mean, I would say it's as nice as having a real half nut that you engage. But I actually think for this kind of work, this is actually better. It's more convenient, really. So anyhow, that's my little quick review on the lead screw. Hope it's helpful. Thanks.